Hello.
Hi.
Hi, good morning, ma'am. This is Ali Heather from NIDM.
Good morning,
Hi.
Ali. Hi, Poonam. Good morning.
Good
I
morning.
just wanted to check, shall we do some tech checks because I need to share a couple of screens, etc. So I'll just check if it's all running.
Yeah, Vivek will give you the rights to share, ma'am. Then you can share your screen.
Okay.
Vivek, can you do that?
And I also wanted to just once understand the flow in terms of you. You will be starting, right?
Yeah, I'll start the inaugural session. I will call you for the program briefing. Then
Yes.
we will go to Professor Santosh. And I don't know whether the AD and IDM will be joining or not. Actually, he is in the traffic right now. He has not reached to the office.
Okay.
So we will see if he is available, then he will take his keynote address. Otherwise, we will go to the technical sessions.
Okay, so now for the technical sessions, as you know, Rohit Jigyasu has had to travel urgently,
Yeah.
so he will not be joining in person, but he has sent his presentation. So I will be sharing, that's why I need the screen share rights to,
Okay, so we can do one thing, ma'am. Those who are present now, we can take their sessions first and then we can play the video after that.
okay, okay. So the order was also our panelist from Nepal. He said he will join by 11. So we'll see. But this also this aspect of reading out the bios. So I will do that, right? Or because I have the bios with me, or are you going to do that?
Yeah, who will be yeah, you are I think moderating the technical session, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
you
yes.
you can introduce them, ma'am. No problem.
Okay. All right. ठीक है. So hi Vivek, good morning. If आप म्यूट पे है शायद.
Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Vivek, just give that sharing right to ma'am so she can check whether she is able to share her screen or not.
Given.
Okay. One second. Somehow it's not letting me share. This is WebEx events. Is it different from WebEx meetings?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, it is a little bit different from that. There will be a sharing button just adjacent to the start or stop video.
I know, but my
Are you able to
my
click on that?
laptop is asking me for to change some privacy settings, and
Okay.
it's not showing. One second. Should I do something? If can I share Rohit's presentation with any of y'all so you can?
Yeah, that will be better, ma'am. You can share it with Vivek. He can share from this side.
Yeah, because somehow I'm not being able to share my screen. So I'll just forward, it's a WeTransfer file. I'll just forward it to you, Vivek.
But I would like to test also.
Please
Just
do that, yeah.
let's,
If
can somebody, then we'll know whether it's everybody's or what we have to do.
Vivek, give the rights to Mr. Poonam, ma'am.
Yeah. You can see the screen, right?
yeah.
Okay.
So, Vivek, I have shared the WeTransfer file.
Okay, ma'am.
Santosh sir has joined. Good morning, sir, and welcome.
Good morning. Very good morning.
So we are just starting in another 1 or 2
Good morning,
minutes.
sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Very good morning. Very good morning. You are Miss Bose, no? Kamalika
Yes.
Bose.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice to meet you on virtual meeting.
Likewise, I'm looking forward to a good session with everyone.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Namaskar. You are joined from Goa or Bangalore?
Yes, Goa.
Goa. Okay.
Good. So we can join.
So with the permission of dignitaries, Santosh sir and Ms. Bose and the resource person, should we start the program?
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay, thank you,
Yes.
sir.
So before we final thing I want to check with you, Ali, is so what is the final order then? Will we start with Poonam, then
Yeah, we can just start with the resource person who are available right now. Then we can
Yes.
play the video of Mr. Rohit Jigyasu after that.
Okay.
Sir, is
Oh.
that okay? Or should
Yeah,
we?
yeah, please go ahead. We will come in the end.
No, sir. We will start with the inaugural session, and in the technical sessions, actually Rohit Jigyasu sir has shared his video because he was traveling to US. So we are just wondering if we can take the available resource person first, and then we can play his video in the technical session.
So ask Madam Bose what
Okay,
is
please, ma'am,
order
whatever
which
you
she
suggest.
wants.
Yes, that is fine. Our order had been planned as, from global to regional to local, but we can reverse it also because we'll have to check with our speaker from Nepal. We had asked him to join at 11. So, Lakshmi, if you can just check with him, call him and request him to join.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
So meanwhile, we will start the program. So
Yes.
a very good morning to all the respected dignitaries, participants, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of National Institute of Disaster Management and Heritage Synergies India, I welcome you all to this one-day webinar on cultural heritage disaster risk reduction. The pattern of this webinar are Mr. Shri Taj Hassan sir, the Senior IPS Officer and the Executive Director of National Institute of Disaster Management. Sir is also the Director General of Civil Defense Fire Services and Home Guards. And Ms. Kamalika Bose, the Founder Principal of HSI, Heritage Synergies India. The Program Director of this webinar is Professor Santosh Kumar sir, who is the Professor and Head of Governance and Inclusive Disaster Risk Reduction and Disaster Response and Recovery Divisions at NIDM. So welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Now I would like to request Ms. Kamalika Bose, the Founder Principal of HSI, to please give a briefing of this program. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Ali, and welcome everyone. I would like to first thank the National Institute of Disaster Management for organizing this webinar in collaboration with us. It's a very pertinent topic, which is getting more and more relevant with time as man-made and natural disasters are proliferating. The intention of this webinar today is to really present and validate a large-scale risk assessment and management of cultural heritage sites, taking into account the intangible and tangible qualities, communities who are at risk, and how do we really mitigate and work in a way which is holistic and integrated and not in an isolated way. In that, the role of central and state agencies become very important in working with on-ground local stakeholders and partners. And these are some of the things that we will highlight in today's discussion to really look at vulnerability of cultural heritage sites and how due to multiple factors, including lack of awareness and poor regulatory frameworks, we see a sort of entangled web of things are ground not working the way they are planned on paper. So one of the main intentions of this webinar is to address key questions of how state and central agencies can play a more effective role in disaster risk reduction of cultural heritage sites, and not just organizations like NIDM or state disaster management organizations which are formally constituted for this purpose, but in a more integrated and holistic way. So we have three very interesting panelists and speakers with us today. The intention is to look from a global perspective, for which we have Dr. Rohit Jigyasu, who is the program manager for ICROM in Rome. We have Dr. Rohit Ranjitkar, who is the director of the Kathmandu Valley Preservation Trust in Nepal. And we have Ms. Poonam Verma Mascarenas, who is the director of Akinova Environments and the co-founder of Goa Heritage Action Group. So they will be really talking to us about best practices, approaches, concerns, and ways in which multiple partnerships can be facilitated at global, regional, and local levels. With that, I would formally invite our first speaker who is present with us right now, Ms. Poonam Verma. I will give a basic, yes.
Yeah, ma'am, first we will start the inaugural session. We will
Yes,
end it, and then we will go for the technical session.
I think let it proceed. I mean, let it go. What Madam has set a tone, and it would be nice to listen to them first, and then we will pitch in at the end.
Okay, sir, sure. Then we can start, ma'am, with the technical session. Yeah.
Okay. Poonam Verma Mascarenas is an architect, historic buildings and urban conservationist, researcher, writer, and founding director of the Goa-based award-winning studio Akinova Environments. A former Charles Wallace Fellow, she has collaborated as an expert consultant with several organizations like JVF, INTAC, HECAR, UNESCO, ICOMOS, AKTC, and the governments of Indian states of Kerala, Rajasthan, Karnataka, and Himachal Pradesh. She is the co-founder of Goa Heritage Action Group, member of the first steering committee of ICOMOS India, and served on the Senate of SPA Vijayawada from 2020 to 22. She is the author of two books, The Mapped Heritage of Panjim, Goa, and Silent Sentinels, Traditional Architecture of Coorg, and other books, and is currently her forthcoming co-edited book is titled Conservation in the Indian City, Bridging the Gap. Welcome, Poonam.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you, Kamalika and HSI, for inviting me to be a panelist and share my views initiated by National Institute of Disaster Management, this important step forward. Hope my screen is visible and I'm loud enough.
I think yes, please go ahead.
Culture Climate Planning, Conundrums at Goa. That's how I have titled the presentation. And it has three parts. We'll be discussing what culture means, what climate, and where the planning comes in, and where we have conundrums. Culture is a process wherein the first step is a new pattern of behavior is invented or an existing one is modified. Cultural resources of India are 3,000 years of process of innovation, assimilation, appropriation, adaptation, adoption, and fusion. This 3,000 years of living culture and recorded history is testimony of humans to be most adaptable and are the key to managing the finite resources of the planet. Pandemic years have shown us the capacity to overcome adversity needs both capabilities and adaptability. Culture is considered as the fourth pillar of sustainable development. However, I believe it can be the integrator connecting the other pillars of economic growth, social inclusion, environmental protection, in distributing the weight of sustainability. If we look at our traditional buildings, materials, stone, earth, lime for mortar, plaster decoration, wood for floors, doors, windows, and columns and roofs. But the context has always been about climate, plus terrain, plus management of resources, and we have distinct design from north, south, east, and west. Planning with nature is one of our key resources, culture, knowledge in terms of managing resources, water being one of the most important one, and multi-climatic zone country that India is. Popular perception of conservation has been about making a statement of significance, and then it's very static. We get a heritage product. However, conservation actually is to manage change, retain values, and put it to appropriate use. And this is where we need to move from building practices which were there in the past also, which were adapted, evolved through time, and we need to call them traditional building assets, not heritage product. Then they can be enhanced, and we'll have cultural resources where we further work on the problem solutions through time for continuum. And this makes it dynamic process. Coming to the Goan context of Goa, here we have a coastline of 101 kilometer, land area is 3,702 kilometers, square kilometers. The state was founded on May 29, 1987, population today around 15.28 lakhs. However, floating population anywhere between 70 to 90 lakhs. That's the problem. District North and South, capitals Panjim, and Porvorim is for legislation, while judiciary is Mumbai. In terms of historical context, we have Mesolithic engravings found on the banks of the river Kushavati at Uzgalimal, dating to about 10,000 years ago. And on the right, you see a heritage map done by a Goa Heritage Action Group, which actually dots the entire landscape of Goa with temples, churches, historical schools, you name it, and we have it. Natural sites, national parks. In terms of historical records, people think of Goa only as the Portuguese colony. However, its history actually goes back to Kadamba period in the 11th. 13th century comes the Kadambas. They shift capital to Goapuri. 1370 Goa becomes part of Vijayanagara Empire. 1469 Bahmani Sultans. 1489 Adil Shahi of Bijapur. And in 1510, although it's the longest colonial rule from 1510 to 1961, we have the Portuguese rule. And in 19 December, Indian Army liberated Goa along with Daman and Diu. In terms of photographers, Goa, yes, I'm sure most of you know about it. The coastal, the cultural aspects of nature, the artifacts, the building practices, the decorative elements, which are also functional. And in terms of administrative context, we have Urban Development Department, we have Town and Country Planning Department, Town and Country Planning Act of 1974, land use legislation, declaration of heritage conservation areas, and then we have municipalities. In terms of legislative context, we have Forests Conservation Act 1980 extends to the whole of India except J&K, Environmental Protection Act, Coastal Regulations Zone Notification and Heritage Conservation 1991, Environmental Protection Eco-Sensitive Zone since July 2000, Archaeological Survey of India, which amended its Act of 1958 in 2010, gave provision of 100-meter and 200-meter regulated zone for each of the national monuments. A National Monuments Authority has been constituted, and State Department of Archaeology and Archive has been now this year divided into State Department of Archaeology and a different one for archives. And it has rules of 1980. So why are we talking today? Goa, with its 160-kilometer coastline and 7 major rivers, 3 of which are navigable, several islands and backwaters, is at high climate risk. However, the Kazan system that is unique to Goa in the world offers us an insight into designing with nature. This is how Goa came about, because it is this which led to the development of settlement of Goa. Now we are approaching a state of submergence. Why? Because this is a map released by ISRO, which shows us that much of Goa is sitting barely 5 meters above the sea level, and the destruction of Kazans would sound the death knell for the state. The blue-green area, which is about 0 to 15 meters above sea level area, straddling the coast, many rivers prone to tidal ingress, these floodplains contain most of the Kazan lands, whose fragmentation could cause submerge to 50% of Goa. The red is what indicates 35 meter above sea level, which is the Western Ghats, and it is believed Goa was at one point limited to these regions before the advent of Kazans, which is 11th century onwards or 12th century onwards, that Kazans have helped Goa to become what in 1961 as a jewel of India. But what are we doing today? Killing the mangroves by blocking ingress of saline waters. For what? Mainly because we feel that few Indians want their holiday homes for the super rich. And this is how Kazan lands are being inundated throughout Goa. However, Constitution of India says it shall be the duty of every Indian citizens to protect, improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. And the amendment to the Constitution, 73rd and 74th, brought in 92 and came in force in 93. It was meant to provide constitutional sanction to establish democracy at the grassroots levels, as it is at the state level or national level. Key objective to promote bottom-up planning. Here is an example. In August to December 2006, RP 2011 was released. Interpretation of RP began in an architect's office. Survey numbers, land use, color coding of map, settlement areas, commercial, residential, orchard, overlaid on Google Map, and the findings, concretization of Goa. Total disregard for forests, marshes, mangroves, fields, CR zoning, and most visible was settlement zone. Public rallies began, public interfacing, taking this findings to the people, more of it became a people's movement. And with one single voice, Save Goa, revoke RP 2011. It was revoked in January. A task force was formed. February terms of reference were a bit altered, but by October 2008, we got ourselves a draft RP 2021 notified, and it has many new headings. Eco-sensitive zone 1 and 2 being of great interest, for it not only mentions the nature as heritage, but also views the built heritage as an important resource. But soon after, we had an amendment made to the TCP Act of 78 by 16 and 16A, which in practice exempted all government projects from purview of regional plan. PIL is in code. The parallel process later on, this is an experiential learning that village para, when the TCP sent the village plan to the panchayat with questionnaire, Gram Sabha decides to take up the review, mapping and regulations and sets up a 30-member village level committee, VLC. It requests us the technical help, and we printed the plan from scale 1:5,000 to 1:1,000 on site Trekkie. And this was taken up in groups of 4 and more, a little hand holding, and all buildings, commercial, residential, heritage houses, roadways, trees, fields, open spaces, churches, chapels, temples, water bodies, hills, forests were mapped. Here is a snapshot. Look at that list. Banyan trees, ponds, waterways, kontlam, nesting areas, nature trail, animal paths, auxiliary irrigation, conservation zones, and in the list of built heritage, institutional buildings, settlements. This kind of mapping, no town and country planning can do. Only people who are living in the village can do it. And this local area mapping is the basis. It could be informed and resilient planning, could be the first step. The intangible gains, yes, people are part of it. There was a dramatic shift from well-being of my plot to the well-being of my village. Familiarity with mapping as a tool of understanding the ground realities, and then understanding of planning as a tool for regulating change, managing resources, and shaping of the collective future. Now we come to Old Goa story. This was the one which is the map which was released by the TCP department. But actually on site, this is the historic core where you have another Shai city, you have a Portuguese era Cidade de Goa, outer fort wall from Kadamba, the various forts, and none of it has been recognized in the CDP or the planned development of the village. Goa measuring 3,000 has monuments, of which 14 are in Old Goa, and 7 of this belongs to World Heritage List. I want to draw your attention to these buildings, these churches, which are part, the 3 of them, how they are towering above the coconut groves, which means their height is more nearly between 15 meters to 20 meters. And please look at although it is beautifully picturesque, but look at the threads that we can see. The river Mandovi, which is a tidal river. More about this. So in WHC nomination, a buffer zone was marked by ASI. There is St. Cajetan Church, which is of 17th century, but there is also Largo. These were the open areas, the fields where food was grown to support the convents and churches and for their own produce. And it is listed as a protected site by ASI. What are the issues? There are another 7 ASI protected sites in this 4-kilometer diameter area. There are another 9 which are state protected within that diameter. And then there are unprotected 17 of them, which we found out, we listed. And then there are non-existing, which is archaeological. Through our survey of the historical records, we were able to list them. Referencing the map of 1778, my office, we got together and said, okay, let's make an Old Goa heritage plan where there are 35 heritage sites, 40 archaeological sites, 2 historic walks, and 3 scenic, and we mapped them all. Why? To bring into awareness that it's not just the 7 monuments, it's the entire area, which is of immense archaeological value. And we took also the initiative through Goa Heritage Action Group to look at the regional plan scale of the same village and mark the buffer zones of 100 and 200 and place these within also the various, the blue lines that you see in the middle are the rivulets. These are the natural springs because it is a hill area and it is meeting the site at the river banks. But this has not been notified. Finally, in 2020, this is the site that we are looking at. And look at the satellite image of January 2020. We are talking about COVID years now. And in 21, a bungalow has come right on within protected site and part of the buffer zone as well. Issue is not about the laws alone. If we look at this scenario where these buildings are sitting at least a 10-meter foundation with 20-meter height, if one bungalow is allowed right next to the river, which is the low-lying area for the entire area, this is where excess rainfall is absorbed by the earth. Open areas have become crucial for the health of these monuments and everything else that we have seen to be part of the archaeology. This is what led from a small little hut to a double-story bungalow for a private use. It had to be, one had to protest. And right there, the youth joined in as we have to be friends with our heritage, both natural and cultural, built and unbuilt. And it led to 5,000 people coming together because it felt that this is irresponsible of our TCP. Eventually, TCP revoked permission. Panchayat also had to revoke the permission. But the demands of the old Goa committee is to raise this bungalow down. And that is Satyagraha is still going on. This is fundamentally why we founded Goa Heritage Action Group in 2000 to counter this culture of appropriation by the builders, to pursue the government of Goa to bring into fold of protection the unprotected built and natural heritage. We took up the mapping again for Panjim to compare the status of heritage from 2015 to 2018. And we found Panjim has lost 124 heritage buildings in the last decade. And the last 2 years, it has lost another 10. We did bring it out in the public domain, and everybody is able to now monitor the health of the city. Because we believe that when we know, we understand, then we can value, and then we will care. The impact of this research on planning as such, substantial increase in conservation zone and city development plan 2031, and Fountainers Heritage Zone has been expanded. This is Fountainers in Panjim. But at the parallel to it, we have 3 projects of 4 laning of NH and then the railway lines double laning and laying of 400 kVA transmission line. These threaten the forests and in and around Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary and Mole National Park. The NH4A widening and double tracking over there, these are just 2 of the 30 projects that have been cleared by Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change during the lockdown. It is confounding. Well, in this case, again, the youth of our state got together and from watching with growing concern as the word 3 destructive linear projects came about, hundreds of trees and forests razed to the ground. It was alarming. Students coming together to share their related forest stories. And please look at the Instagram page at the rate of Mole.memory project. To lawyers coming forward to explain the meaning of law, to scientists distilling years of fieldwork into single accessible explainers, to artists, writers, animators, filmmakers, brainstormed way to make what we were learning come alive. Creativity knew no bounds. We even had people make Mole-inspired deserts on international television. And it all small victories step by step, May 9th, 2022, this year. The Supreme Court has yet again upheld the CEC recommendations in favor of Amchigolim by challenging the railway double tracking project and set aside the crucial clearances granted to it by NBWL. It has allowed railways to reapply, but it is confirmed that the forest clearance for the railway double tracking project through Amchigolim given by National Board of Wildlife, we have lost 75% of world's wildlife. They are extinct, and yet we continue to do this. And it has been cancelled by Supreme Court. And why are we doing all of this? There is a planned destruction now. So heavy showers that led to floods and put state on high alert. The story is from July 8, 2022. And November 2022, again, the citizens of the city are out there on the roads challenging the Smart City Panjim, Smart Panjim project, where all the open spaces right along the river and the sea at the Arabian coast is being concretized and to facilitate all kinds of things for casinos. It's one wonders what are our priorities? Coming back to our national level, We have centrally protected about 3,700 something, 5,000 are state protected. NIDI Aayog brought out a report, and 46 Ramsar sites, 40 World Heritage sites, and unprotected more than 5 lakhs. But this is by conservative estimate, both natural and built. And that's where we need to focus. Why? Because in India, carbon emissions are now third largest in the world. Up to 60% carbon emissions are accorded to built environment, including infrastructure. And urgent is climate action to reduce new carbon on our footprint, determine carrying capacity for new development. Conservation as climate pathways. Why? Because embodied energy of existing building can be put to good use if each could be repaired, retrofitted, conserved by arresting decay and adding design and adapted to new use. All these buildings may not make it to the register of heritage, but in the era of climate crisis, each is a valuable opportunity as they are carbon neutral. Let us look at the conclusion. Traditionally, people and nature work together, harness the capacities to yield civilizations. But then came the 100 years of industrial, where people became over nature, ego, and everything that we can tame the nature. We created products, but we also created a lot of waste. We need to change this culture, and now the culture of climate action needs to come in, which is sustainable, where people and nature work together, manage the resources, bring in an attitude of reduce, reuse, recycle, and we have to become conscious consumption. Thus, this dynamic conservation as to manage change, retain values, appropriate use, with building practices taken and adapted as building traditional building assets, traditional knowledge systems, and to be enhanced. And we take cultural resources, which includes everything, tangible, intangible, of 3,000 years knowledge gathering. Culture climate, where planning for dynamics of climate action demands developing strategies wherein nature must be nurtured as most valuable cultural resource and not a commodity. Relationship between caretaking and commodification is explicitly balanced. Development is ecologically appropriate while conservation is development oriented, which means we need to use the assets. Coordinated implementation is, its time working in silos is over. And that's where National Institute of Disaster Management comes in, wherein imagine all the vulnerability plans for each state were supposed, if they start informing the regional plan and local area level plan starts informing and be in line with the vulnerability plans, mindful of it. And this can only happen if citizens are co-participants in shaping a resilient future of the country. And we professionals need to facilitate this process and take on more ownership. Thank you.
Thank you, Poonam, for raising all your concerns. And this is very important to incorporate right in the beginning, because we cannot wait for the disaster to happen. And that is what the risk reduction really entails. Take all the preparedness that is required for us to be ready and to mitigate. So on that note, I would request Ali, if we could move on to our next speaker, which is Dr. Rohit Jigyasu's presentation. Our speaker from Nepal is still facing some.
Yes, I was actually on phone with him. He is,
Okay.
yeah, he is struggling to join. So
Yeah.
we can start with with Dr. Rohit Jigyasu's video.
So that video you all will share, right? I'll just
Yeah,
read.
Vivek will.
Okay, so I will just introduce our second speaker today, who is had to travel to the US urgently, so he has not been able to join us in person, but he has been kind enough to share a recorded presentation, which we will play. Dr. Rohit Jigyasu is a conservation architect and risk management professional from India, currently working at ICROM in Rome as project manager, climate change and disaster risk management. Rohit served as UNESCO chairholder, professor at the Institute of Disaster Mitigation of Urban Cultural Heritage at Ritsumeikan University, Kyoto, Japan, where he was instrumental in developing and teaching international training course on disaster risk management of cultural heritage. He was the elected president from ICOMOS India from 2014 to 18 and president of ICOMOS International Scientific Commission Committee on Risk Preparedness, ICORP, from 2010 to 2019. Rohit has served as an elected member of the executive committee of ICOMOS and was also the vice president from 2017 to 20. Before joining ICROM, Rohit has worked with several national and international organizations such as UNESCO, UNI SDR, Getty Conservation Institute, and World Bank on various consultancy, research, and training programs on disaster risk management of cultural heritage. Thank you.
I hope you can listen the audio.
The audio is not there. We can only hear the video, see the video, but the audio is on mute.
Okay, let me check. Can you listen now?
No,
No.
not yet.
Okay.
We can't hear the audio.
Can you hear me now?
We can't hear the audio from
We can
the.
hear you, but we can't hear the video, the audio which is embedded in this presentation.
Actually, ma'am, sir has joined from Nepal, so we can start with his session right now, and then I'll figure out what is the problem going on with this audio of the video one.
Okay.
So we can start with Rohit sir.
In the meanwhile, I'll also share this presentation with Lakshmi so she can see if she can share the screen instead later.
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Okay. So, welcome, Dr. Rohit Ranjitkar. Thank you for making the effort despite the technical issues that you have been facing to join the network. And thank you, Vivek, as well, for helping him through the process, Vivek and Lakshmi. Dr. Rohit Ranjitkar is an architect and preservation consultant. He is the director of the Kathmandu Valley Preservation Trust and serves as its program director. His research includes the documentation and study of conservation practices in Nepal. He had his PhD in historic preservation from Byelorussian State Polytechnic Academy in 1997. He has worked in the field of architectural conservation with the KVPT since its establishment in 1991. KVPT is an international not for profit organization dedicated to safeguarding Nepal's extraordinary architectural heritage. Dr. Ranjitkar is responsible for the targeting, design, and implementation of the restoration projects, as well as fundraising and training of local professional craftsmen and negotiation with local officials and involved community groups. After the 2015 Gorkha earthquake, he is fully focused from rescuing artifacts to rebuilding of the monuments in and around the Patan Darbar Square World Heritage Site. With that, I welcome Dr. Rohit Ranjitkar.
Thank you, Kamalika. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so
Sir, your video is off if you would like to turn that on.
I'm in mobile.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, but you have my presentation over there, right?
Yes. Would you
Okay.
like us to share it?
Yeah, I don't know. Can you share it?
Yes.
Or I can just like
I
say
will-
like
I
when I
will
need to
also
change the
request-
slide.
I will request, yes, you can say, I will request Vivek to share the screen. Just give us a
Okay.
minute.
Are you sharing the screen?
Yes, I have sent the presentation both to Vivek and Lakshmi. So either of you can share it, the screen, please. Because even I'm being unable to share my screen today for some
Yeah,
reason.
Lakshmi has the right, so she can share from her
Okay.
side.
I will wait.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Dr. Ranjitkar, we can start. Thank you.
Okay, so you, but I don't see the screen over there, right? I ask for change the slide. Sorry, can you hear me?
Can you see the slides on your phone?
No.
Okay.
It does not matter actually. I can just keep talking and
No,
they
you can
can.
keep talking. Correct. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just let me know when the screen has to be changed. I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Sorry for inconvenient with this modern technology. Can I see the second slide with the history? So I just want to start a little bit
Yes.
with history. So most of the Kathmandu Valley's monument is constructed what we see today, the survived monument from 1200 to 1800. But there are also oldest survived monuments in the valley from 6th to 7th century, but they are not big monuments, small monuments, and maybe some like a water spout or a small stone Buddhist chaityas like that. And we also have lots of history about architects and craftsmen sent to China in 1200. So there are lots of buildings which was built by the local craftsmen from here. The evolution of architecture style changing, but it's still there are much continuation over the centuries, which we can still see the influence from that period until 19th century. Next slide, please. So
Yes.
if you see the history, how the traditional skills are slowly diminished, like after 1800, local architect skills slowly changing the design or style, or it's um, diluting with modernization. So also, somehow in our culture, I think in maybe the Asian culture, we have no regular maintenance, no timely maintenance, because all these historic monuments, it needs um, timely maintenance. Otherwise, it gets deteriorated by several reasons. Maybe sometime, in our monuments, mostly by the monsoon rains, when there is a leakage and you get like damage every year more and more. And also somehow artisans, they are not seen as a higher status in the society. They are just treated as a labor. So somehow no parents wants to bring their kids in this profession. Um, uh, in the old days, when there is no school, college, so everybody follow the ancestral profession, which is now slowly decreasing. And if you see on the city area, new generations are not following the ancestral occupations. And also when we have a new architectural that, people are producing more like modern bricks or any other materials, which somehow um, not keep them to reproducing the same thing as used to be before. Can I have next, please? I just want to tell a little story before we jump into the 2015 earthquake. So we have the history of 1934 earthquake. We know lots from the 1934 earthquake because at that time there is the photographic evidence, and there was also some written histories. Uh, and there is also one very good book about 1934 earthquake, which described lots of things, not even like monuments, but at least he has listed like damaged monuments or collapsed monuments, something like that. But we don't have any like a good documentation pre-1934 earthquake, because at that time no photography as well. I believe like education is not in the peak like what we see after the 19th century. So here, what I was trying to say is every earthquake, we lost many monuments. If you see on the first picture, I have arrow on the top. That tower was, and the next tall tower was totally lost. You can see in the middle picture, but in present, the middle tower is no more there, because after the rebuilding after 1934 earthquake, they did not rebuild that. It might be like a lack of resource, lack of material. It could be anything. Next, please. And lots of time we also come across the monuments which was not rebuilt in the how it used to be. How they have not considered the pre 1934 configuration of the temple. So on the first picture, you can see the stone temple on the front, and there are two stone temples on the back. They all collapsed in the 1934 earthquake. And out of 3, they only rebuilt one, which is on the right side, next to the slope roof. The one on the front is quite reduced to the small size, like you can see the brickwork and some onion dome, and the one behind, which is on the left, before the 1934 earthquake, it was rebuilt in the stone, but in the different configuration. So this way, the architecture is also slowly changing after the this kind of events. Next, please. So this is what happened in 2015 earthquake. So um, the first picture is immediately like after the earthquake. It was totally dusty. It is Patan Darbari Square, where my work is mostly based. So, and if you see the second picture, people are gathered in the open space because they don't know what to do, which is quite natural, like something like that event. People always try to go to the open space. You can see like the birds are all flying. And on third picture, people are just sitting wherever they found the open space. And on the fourth picture, bottom left, some people taking photographs, some people calling their friends and relatives. And one of the temple, which a small rest house, collapsed next to the palace, and the couple of person trapped inside the rubble. So there are people immediately went to help them to rescue that people, and they rescue the person which was trapped, who was trapped. You can see on the last picture. It was easy because all the materials are, the traditional material used in those buildings, like brick and mud mortar. So it was easy to move manually. You don't need any big equipments to move it. And we also have lots of issue like in the concrete building during the earthquake, and it took like a few days to remove the rubbles. So it's some places the army who was involved on this able to save a couple of person after a few days, and some places we don't know, like they died um, before they open up, or so it's hard to say, or they just like died immediately after the collapse. Next, please. So these are a couple of monuments which came down totally grounded during the earthquake. So what I say, like, immediately after the earthquake, there are people who live around there and they value the culture of their ancestors. And because it was on Saturday, it was a government holiday, there is no government offices open. So they immediately come to the site and they rescue him. Most of the important pieces of artifacts which they think it might be stolen, because we also have always issue with stealing artifacts. So somehow the statue of the king, which was on the one of the stone pillar, they came down and it was just smashed under the big piece of pedestal. So they slowly take it out, and you can see on the next picture, they bring it inside the museum courtyard for safety and the security. Next, please. So this is how it looked on the second day when I walked there. So everybody, like, curious, like, so some in the first day, so people are moving around the damaged area. But the local people arrange for the security because of the safety and the um, safety and the security. So local people are somehow, I really appreciate at the time, because I never thought before the earthquake, if something happened like that, people will be interested to give the security to the square. And it was quite amazing to see for me, like, there was no government officials, because after the earthquake, everybody more concerned about the area where they used to live. Even there are lots of training or pre-earthquake, but somehow everybody's concentration will be like where they live, and lots of time they don't want to leave the family, and also the family does not want them to go to the site. So this makes sense, like, for me, like, local people are the most important people who live around there, and they are always there. They can quickly react, they can quickly come, they can also, we saw like the people are rescuing the artifacts. So somehow they protect the whole site until we have not started rescuing the pieces. And meantime we have the rain, so we got plastic from also the local community, and we covered at least the wooden elements to protect from the water. Next, please. So like on fifth day, we have the big group from the army and the police with the big bulldozer and trucks, because their task is remove the rubbles for the access if there is some emergency, like ambulance or fire brigade, something like that. And I already heard from the Kathmandu Darbari Square, they run the bulldozer on the first day to rescue the people over there, but as well to open the access. And when they used the bulldozer to clean the debris, it was all damaged from the steel wheel from the bulldozer. So somehow when I see the bulldozer in Patan Darbari Square, I requested the army chief, not to run the bulldozer, because there is access parallel to this road, so it is not necessary to really, we need to open the access from here. It took like an hour to convince, because their job was open the access, so I can understand that, but finally they agree not run the bulldozer on the rubble, which will change all the brick into the dust as well. There are lots of timber pieces which was damaged and broken in the Kathmandu Darbari Square. So they agree to collect manually. So first priority, I have told them we need all the artifacts, all the carved elements from stone or wood or metal, as quickly as we can rescue is better, because it's raining as well, there is a risk of theft. So we have 350 army and police members who help to collect all the artifacts. And when we are working, um, this way, so there are local people also quite interested, and there are many local people who also came to help us. If you see on the last picture, even we were able to rescue small elements, like the person is holding the small face which was chipped off from the stone sculpture. So these are all we rescue from the huge rubble of the earthquake collapses. Next, please. So this is how it looks like. We rescue all the carved elements, and we just kept in courtyard of the museum, Patan Museum, and it was quite hard to see, how much stuff was there. And in the beginning, I was thought like we can have segregated all the pieces from different buildings, different monuments in the different part of the courtyard, but it was so difficult with more than 350 people, like rescuing from the square to inside the courtyard. So at least I was pretty much happy, like we were able to rescue the pieces. So of course uh, I know I will be able to segregate the pieces from the different building, but it might take like a few hours more than if we have been segregated there, because all the monuments are different size and the different design, and even it looks like similar. All the carved elements are not matching with each other. So because we have some of the photographs before the earthquake, I'm pretty sure at that time, like we will be able to keep in the right place. Next, please. So this is how it looked like the square during the earthquake, while we have army and we have lots of local people helping. So it was quite amazing to see also. It's like it's a huge teamwork. Next, please. And not only the carved elements, we also we have collected all the carved elements within like a week or less than a week. And then we still have people, army, police, and the local people, they want to help. Then I said, why not? We should also rescue all the bricks and tiles which will be reusable in the reconstruction. So this is how you can see like all the usable bricks are stacked on several places, and all the rubbles will throw right on the road. So in the second picture, you can see the bulldozer is collecting all the rubbles to throw outside. Next, please. And also there are some temples which is not collapsed, but it was structurally damaged, and it looks like it might fall any moment because we have so many aftershocks. So you can see like we started propping the temples as well, and also there are lots of wall damage, and some of the buildings wall is totally out from the place, so they are just holding by all the timber columns and the doorways in this temple. You can see on the second picture. So we have put lots of props, so even we need some time, maybe reconstruction, rebuild the temple if it is structurally unsound. But if it collapses, we will have more damage, then we take it out piece by piece. Next, please. So then after like 10 days, our craftsmen, our artisan, they start to come. Then from the rubble, we started to segregate the pieces. Like on the first picture, you can see like there are a couple of carpenters and wood carvers. They are assembling the small windows, and these windows are consist of about 30 or 40 pieces of different timber pieces which is interlocked. They are never traditionally, we never have any screw or nails used. They are all interlock each other. So you have to find the right piece to put it in the set. So this is what they are doing for QD, like almost 2 weeks to segregate all the pieces from the different building. Next, please. And also, meantime, before we send to the storage, meantime, we build huge storage behind the palace in the garden. And before we send to the storage, we do the documentation, we photograph everything, and from then we segregate the pieces, like which piece goes to the which side of the storage, so we have easy to find when during the rebuilding. So on the second picture, even there are, the pieces broken from the pillars, we collected those. Uh, so they are not reusable, but because all the pillars are different, even in the same building, the details are different. So they serve us for to making a replica for those broken pieces. Next bit, please. So this is the storage, how we store everything. We have two big storage where we keep all the pieces. Next, please. So here, then we started looking for the documents, like the of course preferable drawings, but we have 6 building collapse in the earthquake in Patan Darbar Square, and about 10 building structurally damaged. And out of these buildings, we have found only one drawing, which was made in 1970s by some German researcher. But we did not find any other drawing beside that. So it shows you, like, during after such event, it is very important to have the documents. Even we don't have, let's say, maybe it's not possible to have the drawings for all the pieces, all the temples or monuments, but at least if we have a good photograph, it could be like much easier to reassemble or put it back in the right place. Next, please. And we also use a documentation after, the whatever the monuments collapse. So we started making a drawings which is lost, and the lots of time we have to use the pieces which we rescued for reference for the height and everything. The base of the temple or monuments is still there. Sorry, only the upper part above the plinth was totally collapsed. So based on, we have like the length and the width of the temple, but we need to know the height and in different level. So that also somehow helpful with all the elements which we rescued from the rubble. And also we started documenting because it's very difficult to make a drawing of every and each piece. So we started also documenting in the photographic way, so which is now we kept in the archive. Next, please. So the first picture is before the earthquake. You can see on the temple. This is the what we call tumpanum. It is always you can find above the doorway. And on the right picture, our head craftsman, when the temple totally collapsed, it was broken in several pieces. I think it was about 32 pieces. So we just assemble all the pieces piece by piece, based looking on the photograph. So this is what I'm saying, like photograph is also helpful sometimes, even we don't have drawings for each and every piece. And on the bottom left picture, some of the pieces which is not reusable, which is totally converted into the small pieces. So those pieces we make new one to complete the whole set. So this also the photograph help to do this. Next, please. And also there are some craftsmen who are able to make their own sketch. So on the first picture, the guy is making his own sketch based on the pieces what we found to replicate on the lost pieces. And most of the time, even we use the broken pieces, so we want to keep as much as old pieces how we found from the rubble, and only some section which are not reusable, we join it and make carving from the broken pieces. Next, please. And there are also lots of carved elements which is broken in pieces, and some of the pieces, as one previous photograph, the section is lost on, you can see on the first picture, so which we only replace those lost section. And this is something, they still do in how they used to do a couple of 100 years ago with many different small tools. There is no modern tools to do all these carvings. You can see on the third picture, it looks same, but they have a different angle and different carve, the sharp curves in every pieces. So they have to use based on what is the detail on the carving. Next, please. And similarly, there are lots of metal work which is damaged. So this is a pinnacle of one of the temple which was totally smashed when it came down. So it was repaired, and some of the broken sections are also like welded together to complete. And the last picture is after the gilding of the whole pinnacle after it completed. It's not new one. It's the same one which you see on the first and the second picture, and they are all repaired and ready to use. Next, please. So one of the tower was in quite bad condition, so it did not came down, but it just tripped over dislodged from the location. It looks like it's quite in dangerous place because it's very heavy, and we immediately put a scaffolding to rescue that, because if it comes down, it might damage more on the lower sections. So we have immediately the scaffolding. You can still see like there are armies on the ground level who passing the bricks from outside the inside. It's like within like 2 weeks. and then it was all disassembled part by part. So it's not one piece; they are all small pieces joined together. And we also make a drawing when we are working or repairing these big pinnacle. So the yellow pieces on the drawing on the left bottom is damaged, and the lost pieces which we have to make a new one for fixing those pieces. Next, please. And as well, the picture which I saw before also, we rescue all the small artifacts from the rubble, and we also use, like same thing to put it back in the temple with joining them to, because this owl is antique. It is a it has a lots of history and the value, but we have lots of problem when we installing this because no one likes um, the joint pieces, because in our culture it is unauspicious to worship the broken pieces. Uh, it's I believe it's same in India as well. Sorry. But somehow the local people and the priest, they are protesting like you can take this to in museum and you have to make a new one for worship. But we don't want to take it to the museum, because if you take like that, there will be hundreds and thousands. So it took long time to convince all these people. So finally, we were able to put in the right location. But as a negotiation, we make a one new small replica similar like this. So now the priest is worshipping not this one because it's broken and it's joined, and he worship the new one. So it's I think a similar culture I see many places in South Asia. Next, please. So also there are several stones which was somehow soft stone. They use some places they might not able to access good stone or whatever reason. So some of the broken pieces, which is a structural part of the temple, we have to replace those for the structural reason. Also, you can see on the first picture, they can just shipped out and broken in several pieces. So which we make a new piece on the middle picture, and the last one is after the installation. So these are all installed without demolishing the building. Next, please. As well, the stone column, which was right in front of one of the temple, just came down, broken right in the middle. So they were also joined with the steel pieces. Next, please. Before the 2015 earthquake, we never allowed to see the foundation because the Department of Archaeology, who is the authority for the monuments, they never allowed that, as it might have contained lots of archaeological evidence. But somehow after the earthquake, they agree to see the foundation, because most of the time when we have to rebuild the temple, we don't know, like, how is the foundation. So are we rebuilding the temple on the proper foundation or not? The temples which was not collapsed, we don't want to see, of course, because we don't want to demolish the temple. The temple which is completely down, so we have opportunity to see the condition of the foundation as well. And most of the time, the foundation found to be not in good condition, but we did not uh, rebuild the foundation. We just reinforced the foundation, as the foundation is much older part from compared to the temple above, because temple might have been rebuilt sometime in the earthquake or some other events, but the foundation is always remains there. Next, please. So as well, there are several wooden pieces which is not reusable. So most of the pieces which we reused after joining lost piece, but some of the pieces completely broken. So on the first picture, you can see our wood carver is making a new column for one of the building, and we made a 1:1 drawing before he make the column. So he has a good reference for the proportionally all those carves details. And the second one is one of the niche on the wall, which is uh, lost. before the earthquake, it was stolen. So while we are rebuilding the temple, so why not complete the temple? Because we have the good photograph from 70s. So this is how we started making some of the thing also. The first one is you make a 1:1 drawing, then we glue the drawing on the timber so we get the right proportion. And the third one is just before the detail carving, and last one after completion. Next, please. So we have, lots of opportunity to during the rebuild to improve the structure, because since we are in earthquake zone, we believe somehow we have to improve how we, which we don't have in all buildings. So in all structure, traditionally the walls are built in 3 different layers. It was not bonded each other with the bricks, so they are always in fragile condition. So while we rebuilding, the brick bondings are made properly, and we can also feel the plinth, we took out lots of rubble from the plinth, uh, so they are actually not helping during the structural movement, so they are all filled with the brick. But still we use how they used to have the traditionally used mortars, like mud mortars. So these are still, we still rebuild everything in mud mortar. And also second picture is uh, putting the traditional roof tiles on the mud. Next, please. So sometime when we have, encounter problems inside the wall of the temples or buildings, there is also wooden elements used as a frame structure in the building, but you cannot really see from outside because they are hidden behind the wall. So when we open some of the wall which was in bad condition, which need to rebuild, we found most of the timber is rotten. So we replace all those timbers with, we also use waterproofing um, uh, courses, because it always get damp from the ground. So this is why we need to, we know it will deteriorate in, I don't know, some certain year, but at least whatever we can make it life longer is always better. Next, please. So I'm almost at the end. So, we learn lots of things, and we also have lots of challenges after the 2015 earthquake. Um, so what we see, because our monuments are not timely maintained, because, there is not enough budget for the historic preservation, as most of the budget goes in the development, or basic thing like infrastructure such as water, health, education. So they are always priority for the government, which we understand about that. Yeah, that is somehow basic need for the people. Somehow then all the heritage is behind the scenes. So we never have a timely maintain. This is why one of the reason there are more damage in the earthquake. If there was a regular maintenance, it might have been less damage during the earthquake. So this is why, because of that, whenever now we rebuilding the building, we believe it has to be rebuilt structurally sound, because somehow the human safety is the first priority. If you can save human, we can still build the temple or repair the temple. If we, the building collapse on the people, so it does not the thing how we want to see the future. And also, of course, it needs all the standard kind of required for rebuilding. Community involvement, I found it is very crucial. As I also said in the beginning, the community people come on the first, because they are living there, so because they can access easily there. And even there are so many people who are trained for this uh, emergency response, they are not around there. they might need to travel. There might be no road access. There might be other problems, So somehow the priority as a human nature, I can also see lots of time, we don't have the rescue team immediately there as the local people are there. So I believe, we need to also train lots of local people who live around there. So they know what to do. But in this earthquake, what we see is they are not trained, but they still do good things. And we also need a Department of Archaeology support because they are the authority of all the monuments, and as well the guidance is critical. So somehow a strong collaboration between government, local community, and the institution doing the reconstruction work is very essential. Next, please. And there is always a choices between old and new because we always have a controversy in the conservation. Actually, what I used to say is a conservation is a controversy. So people have a different opinion. It's not like, mathematics. Like if you ask how much is 2 plus 2, everybody answer 4. But if you have, 10 questions about the conservation to the 10 people, you might have more than 10 answers. And inefficient skilled craftsmen as well technical experts because people does not see like a big market or big employment in this field, so they are not attract on this thing. And also it's a long lead to train new artisans as well a technical person in this field. The artisans are much more critical because the artisans in old days, they are trained from generation to generation because at that time there is no school college, so their option is what their ancestral doing, they keep continuing. So this is how the skill is survived still today. But now when people are more educated and modernized and especially they are not like considered as a higher status, nobody is interested on this thing. So we never have vocational school, but it seems like it has to be started somehow. And also it's very difficult to find especially timber, as well the other materials too. Next, please. So there is a lots of opportunities as well, like you can raise the awareness of local architectural and cultural heritage. You can also have local and international collaborations. And as well, the reinforced monument to ensure they are structurally sound, um, especially when we rebuild the temple. And also the temples which was not collapsed, not only temples, like also the houses which is not collapsed, it has to be structurally sound and it has to be reinforced to withstand the other events like earthquake or some could be some other thing. And also what we realize like cataloging and the drawings of the monuments, which is not easy, I know, because nobody wants to put money for the documentation in our culture because everybody believe on having something physically there, not like a paperwork which sit on the shelves. So somehow it's very difficult to convince the people to do the documentation. And also, when you have all these monuments or heritage are kept in place and the buildings which was lost in the earthquake, if we rebuild in same way, or whatever, like a same traditionally, it will of course improve the urban quality. This is what one of the income source from the tourism in Nepal. And also it's stimulate the economic engine, like it create a job and skill and income for several professionals. And so it also increase engagement by the government, international and local community. So these are the 3 slides which I show in the beginning. They are in the beginning it was before the earthquake and after the earthquake. Now this is after the earthquake and now it is after the rebuilding. So we are able to bring it back the configuration of most of the monuments in, I don't say 100%, at least 99% how it used to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ranjitkar. I think absolutely commendable work since 2015. Having visited these sites in 2020, just before the pandemic, I saw for myself the nature and scale at which this recovery and reconstruction has been done, and the way the various organizations and stakeholders that you have highlighted are really a lesson and a model for all of us to learn from. And though we have seen and heard about these as case studies in various other academic platforms, to really hear from you and is has been very, very
Thank you.
wonderful for us. Thank you. Um, So I think there are a couple of questions but which we will take at the end of the session. There are some questions for you as well, Dr. Ranjitkar.
No
Uh,
problem.
we will take them at the end. So
Yeah.
we can now move on to our last presentation for the technical session, which is by Dr. Rohit Jigyasu, which we will play on a recorded mode.
I cannot see the slides, right?
Uh, we will play the video. You can let us know if your mobile is playing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have already introduced Dr. Rohit Jigyasu. He is the project manager, urban heritage, climate change, and disaster risk management of ICROM Rome. Please start the video. Once again, it is not audible.
Let me just check.
Yeah, let me try from my end. Vivek, just give me the rights.
Hello, everyone. So the question that I'm going to answer
I hope it is audible now.
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Though Dr. Rohit Jigyasu is not present with us today, I would once again formally like to thank him for taking the time and effort to record this video and make this presentation and share with us today. On this note, we come to a conclusion of the presentations of our three speakers, and I will now like to move on to question answers before concluding the session. It's very heartening to see that we have close to 100 participants today at this webinar. So I would definitely encourage some more questions. In the meanwhile, we have two questions from Mr. Parth Sharma. I think they are meant for Dr. Ranjitkar based on his presentation. The first question is, are there any chances of theft of artifacts during such a disaster? If yes, what steps do you take to prevent it?
Yeah, there is actually, there are some events like that. We heard from the different people. So it's not easy actually during that time because it's everywhere. All the artifacts are. So you cannot have in one place. This is the reason why we try to collect or rescue the artifacts as soon as possible. And it was quite helpful. The community people, they guarded 24 hours in shift. Like there are always few people who was guarding, who was not uh, not allowing people go in the disaster area. So this is how it works. So this is why one of the reason I was pointing out is the community people is always the most important group of the situation or in such events.
Right. The second question is also for you, Dr. Ranjitkar, by Mr. Sharma. If a site is recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, do they fund restorations during any such disaster?
In some contexts, not like in large scale, there was a couple of temples which UNESCO raised for rebuilding or for the repairing or restoration in Kathmandu Darbari Square. But somehow it did not happen because there's some political issues. But they don't have, I believe they don't have big money to do such disaster. What I understand is most of the UNESCO office, they are kind of watchdog, so they see like the activities in the old heritage site and what's supposed to do, or is there something going which supposed to not happen, something like that. They are more interested on those things than rebuilding. And the money, the fund which came for a couple of temples for Kathmandu, it was, I think it was not UNESCO source, it was came through UNESCO.
Okay. Thank you. We don't see any other questions. We would encourage some more from our participants. In the meanwhile, I had one question for Poonam based on her presentation. We have seen in both in your presentation as well as in Dr. Ranjitkar's presentation the importance given to documentation to build the knowledge base of what exists in order to then be able to preempt and plan. So Dr. Ranjitkar showed the necessity for detailed set of documentation drawings for the various sites, and which has helped lead to recovery and reconstruction. And you have also shown about the para panchayat level mapping that took place. So if you could just tell us a little more about, has this been replicated across the state, or how are the ways in which you mentioned about local area plans needing to dovetail into the regional plan and the vulnerability plan, but what is the sort of current state of such knowledge base being built?
Uh, Sadly, it's not a good state. Even though we have seen that there is a lot of wisdom in doing so, for let's say certain very selected few, their advantage over decision making, land as not as a resource but only as a commodity, uh, it's just being thwarted. And that's why the regional plan is still, I mean, we are back at the same status of demanding basically a sorted process, the process in itself, which can help us avoid and prevent disasters. And that's why I made that comment that, if our vulnerability maps were to inform the regional plans, where non-development zone, eco-sensitive zones, all of it was already mapped, then we would not need to go to courts, as we seem to be doing more and more. And it doesn't augur well for anyone. It's a waste of energy to be going around in circles. And this kind of, I think more and more people are realizing that, my sympathies are there with the government as well, people who are working with the government departments, because their hand seems to be tied, because they all agree that yes, indeed, this is the process to go about it. Local area level plans dovetailing into, so the top down and the bot, it's just kind of, we have reached that point. But if we look through the lens of climate change today, there is no excuse anymore. We are just far too many, 1.4 billion people, and each time there is a flooding, whether it's Chennai or Bombay and now Panjim, we lose so much. All the infrastructure is damaged, and this is avoidable through planning. So my short answer to you is that it is quite distressing that even though we know this is the way to go forward, just by few people it is blocked. But there are so many of us who are really pushing to get our planning process in place.
Right. Thank you, Poonam. On that note, I will conclude our technical session for today and invite our convener, Professor Santosh Kumar, to throw light on the subject for today, to also give his thoughts on what the valuable insights and inputs the speakers have given us today, and also his concluding remarks for the webinar. Sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bose, and this very, very insightful kind of a discussion happened, and all the presenters, though Rohit was not there, but his presentation was there, and he could make an effort to do the needful for his voices can also be disseminated to a larger audience. And Mr. Ranjitkar, and also we have Ms. Poonam also, her presentation on Goas and heritage. It's a very, very kind of a challenging era now, we can say, in the context of climate change and increasing risks, especially when it comes to the preservation and against the disasters, like the impending disasters. And she very rightly mentioned about that there is always a threshold which comes, and then people joins and all. If the government is doing, sometimes government is not doing, and then other peer partners are there. So peer pressure group that works, and then we join. So first of all, what I would like to mention here in the whole discourse which happened, it was a brilliant, all the three presentations is very insightful. And we have drawn a lot of learnings to be taken forward as an NIDM for disaster management. So my compliments to all the speakers, and especially you, that you have been able to organize and bring them on the board, and the kind of discussion which requires to take this agenda forward. My concern is this: they against this climate change, and also against that the impending disaster, and also against this already historical profile we have of disasters. the vulnerability is increasing every day. That because the structure itself becoming older, and the older structure becomes higher vulnerability. We say that for any structural damage, you have to have a structure stronger. But here is the case that in heritage sites, especially when we talk about heritage, it's always been a kind of a old and the periodic kind of a structure. So, like as we saw in Nepal and what kind of a structure they had in the past, and how the disaster damaged in 1934 and onwards, also in the 2050. I personally had faced in 2001. I was that time in charge of the long-term recovery projects of the World Bank at Gujarat earthquake, especially that looking into the heritage site and all these places. We had a real challenge that from where we can get the people and how, if it happens, since Gujarat is not a one-time recovery is done and the problem is solved, and that it is in zone 5 of the earthquake. It is a coastal state. Plus, it's also a flood-prone areas and where the heritage is there. Ahmedabad itself, year before last or 2020 something, 19, declared as a heritage city. And if you go and have this transit walk of the city, you will find that the structure is very old, very valuable and all, but whether it will sustain to the disaster. So that is a kind of a challenge and what needs to be done. So first and foremost thing, which is that making a major concern about that structure is getting older and how to have a kind of a mechanism in place so that we can go for the disaster risk reduction of identified places. The second important thing which I would like to mention here is a kind of a, what are the, already Ranjitkar highlighted this issue also, that it's not if you can go as a ex ante action for instead of waiting for the disaster to happen, what are the skill sets which we have with the existing kind of a skill development kind of exercise which is going on, and whether our skill development exercise is actually integrated uh, for the skill for the traditional this structure, like heritage structure. So how much it has been incorporated in the Honorable Prime Minister's skill development program. So that is one thing where is a huge capacity gap. Even if you start a kind of a ex ante risk reduction process in the country, that skill set would be needed. So who would be guiding, who would be the managing the project, and who are the actual workers who would be doing? As Ranjitkar was identifying those issues, and this also we faced in 2001 in Gujarat. So UNESCO had to play a very important role. Then we had a kind of organizations like Intac and all. They worked together, and you said that then how the recovery process went down. So this is the huge technical capacity gap which we need to acknowledge. The third is this, how we are thinking of designing our future when we are going with as we are growing, that most of the thing which has not been declared heritage today, maybe it's a tomorrow's at time will say that this is a kind of a tomorrow's heritage, today's and tomorrow's, that seamless inclusion. So that would also happen because society has to live, evolution process has to grow, that people have to move forward. But despite this, we have to preserve our culture, we have to preserve our history, we have to preserve our all these monuments which our forefathers have been able to create and give those knowledge to us. So what is happening? I was just taking a round of the damage assessment during the this current flood of 7, 8 states, and then we went to Orissa, and we found that one is that it's happening because of the high wind tide, and also the Konark temple, the way it has been. Now it has gone, that whole the flavor of the Konark, which was there existing 20 years ago. I also visited, and when we compare, I was having photographs, fortunately, of those period, and now we are comparing with this period. So these the how much integration has taken place. I'm not a conservation person, but I see as a kind of a commoners, and we are seeing that oh, this structure has fallen, this was there, and now it's not there. So I'm finding it's a kind of a vacuum on that building itself. So this vacuum is not coming as a vacuum itself, but one is a day-to-day degeneration is happening, and also at the time of disaster. So though that is the preservation is being done on a regular basis, but at the time of crisis, with the wind speed would be very high, and that surge would be very, very kind of a different than it used to be because of the climate change. So how our positional challenge of the structure will be taken care of. We cannot shift that structure from there to some other places. So the idea is to how to have that kind of a integrated and also preserved. So this is the third point which I wanted to have. The fourth point which I wanted to have a kind of a drawing lessons from all the three presentations is this: how we can draw the incremental benefits of the day-to-day action instead of waiting for the bigger actions altogether. So here, I would say that what small steps we can collectively, you said the synergy, your institution is for synergy. So there are large number of partners needed. We have been working in isolation. Probably NIDM never thought of working for heritage, and also we thought that it's a baby of ASI and let them work on that. But now we are thinking that's not, the ASI has been given responsibility, but this is our heritage. And this, if X is to be brought, their knowledge can be brought in, but large number of partners can also be brought in here. And then we can build a synergy and do every day a kind of a some change. Then probably we will get the incremental benefit at the time, so 20 years from now, when we are talking about Amrit Kal and 2047 as 100 years of India's independence. So can we have a targeted kind of approach and design our actions there? And the damage and loss, which I would like to mention, when we make a kind of assessment of such kind of a damage assessment, it's very difficult to quantify that what amount we should figure it out in terms of, we say that ASI, look, this was the statue and this was a third century old. It was, so if third century, and we are accounting it today. Normally we work for the replacement cost value on the current price basis for any structure, but this structure has a heritage value. So how to quantify and give the pricing to that? And that we cannot do, but the smugglers can do it very easily. So they know what is the pricing and all. So what I'm saying is that's the question which was raised during this, that how theft can be taken care of. So this is a golden opportunity for them to take that. This is a precious thing, and precious thing can easily be taken away. So that has to be brought in our own planning. So how to quantify that is also, we need to develop some. People do the carbon dating and everything, but the idea is to, if you quantify, then probably we will be able to tell that one is the benefit is different and the cost is also required to be put up there. So benefit of this and the existence of this is probably not there. And one point of the concern, and then I will have 2-3 points for the quickly for future action. So one point is this: we are saying in this how the citizen can be very sensitive towards the structure which is existing. Our olden days, we used to go to the site as a part of the curriculum of the school also, that visiting to the site has a credit to be, I mean, like some marks was to be given in the history and all. Now we have to develop certain mechanism that if X structure, people do not know that such kind of a structure which are existing in their own city, but they are blissfully ignorant about that. So if we start connecting people also with this heritage, then the people's sensitiveness will come, and then community participation can be enhanced. So what I see as a, people have got disconnected. वो एक मूर्ति को देखते हैं and they think that is the kind of a certain, एक structure है, कोई temple है, कोई mosque है, something, and this, that's all. But it's beyond that. How it goes beyond that? What is the history? What is the geography? What we can draw from that from now? So that is just not for the architectural department, but this idea is to, if I'm a sabji seller, I also have a kind of a say and ownership to that heritage. If I'm a businessman, I'm a student and all, but idea is to bring all them together to understand that what is the heritage, which is start talking to the monuments and then have a dialogue with the monument and listen to the stories of the monument by the monument itself. So that probably would be a kind of a creation would be required. So in terms of these, I think 4 or 5 things which an IDM can think of taking it together. One, that how we can think of identification of hotspots. India has a larger kind of a spread of that heritage. So we can think of identifying hotspots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and prioritize that where to go ex ante risk reduction. Then second is also that who all are the partners. So identification of partners also will go as a kind of the challenge is known, the work is known, the volume of the work is known, that these are the hotspots and where we have to work. But who all will do this? So let us identify, should not get confined to ASI. Let the ASI take the lead and we can support them as a agency. And so synergy should be brought in terms of this experts, institution, individuals, community, all come together with the drawing lessons from what happened in post-disaster scenario in Nepal or in Gujarat or maybe elsewhere, where the community came forward to protect their own heritage. So we have to bring some programs for bringing those partners. We have to create one platform where they can share. The third thing is to uh, develop a program for sensitizing generations. So our generations, other generations and all, maybe infotainment, another thing, we can capitalize the technology and reach out to the people. So, so that probably would, we can get the help and sensitive, we can have a sensitive generations towards our own cultural heritage. So that could be another action plan. We need to have a kind of a, as a planned intervention. Also, we have to start capacity building program. So where NIDM can take up to the policy people, operational people, to the ASI and other partners also, but we need to also engage ourselves somewhere to develop that skill deficit for the masons, skill development for the artisans, skill development for the craftsmen, and so on and so forth. It's a very, very kind of a challenging task to actually, which is, it goes from generation to generations, that learning. So we have to tap them before that generation gets lost, who is providing that kind of a, so that we have to make a list who all are the people, and then we have to start thinking on capitalizing. And debris classification, of course, is very important at the time of post disaster. We were in the sense of bewilderness when the Gujarat earthquake happened. The search and rescue operation had to be carried out, and then people were under the debris. Like in Nepal, you had seen that the great pillar collapsed and people died. The rescuer also had to go and make an operations that we have to take the people out. So during that process, many of the heritage go haywire. So we have to see that how search and rescue operation could be carried out at the heritage site, even if the priority is the people, and they are under the debris, and life saving is the first criteria. So how beautifully we can craft our this whole of operations so that we can take people out also, and we can side by side we can preserve something innovative ideas. We have to bring that. So maybe we have to develop some research and innovation so that we can design our, and people who are engaged into search and rescue operations have to be trained also that how to carry out operations in the heritage site. So so that we can avoid those conflict in terms of what kind of my priority is to save life or my priority to save the cultural heritage. So we can avoid by well appreciation, well understanding, well, very good sensitization program to the rescue team, which is largely the local people. And because we conducted a whole of our documentation in the cyclone Fani, and we found that 40,000 people were responding to disasters from organized sector, that NDRF, SDRF, and the state government and all. It was normally 5 to 6,000, but large number of people, 35,000 around. So how, if they are into operations, so how to have a kind of engagement of them also. These are the points which I had, and certainly we have to talk to our policemen in our program, which comes in where they take the law and order and they cordon off the area. So how we can protect from theft. So that has a good strategy has to be adopted for that. So these are the points which I wanted to cover up, and these I've learned from all the three presentations and also your opening comments which you had given. And I'm sure that NIDM would be happy to carry out, but we need support. We cannot do on our own, so that how we can think of calibrating the whole ideas and developing a framework for responding to pre-disaster scenario as well as the post-disaster scenario. Thank you very much and for being the partner with NIDM. And I convey my congratulations to all of you and my compliments to all the presenters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It has indeed been a wonderful opportunity for us to be here on this platform, collaborating with NIDM and bringing in some of the best speakers and the wonderful work that is happening, global concerns, regional concerns, and local concerns, and how they kind of are all interlinked in a way for communities and overall welfare. On that note, I will offer my final vote of thanks. I would like to thank NIDM and Shritaj Hassanji, who could not join us today, but he's the executive director of NIDM, Professor Santosh Kumar, who is our convener for today. And thank you, sir, for your thoughts once again. To all our three invited speakers, Poonam Verma, Mascarenas, Dr. Rohit Ranjitkar and Dr. Rohit Jigyasu, the team of coordinators who have very effectively managed all the pre-planning and the platform today. Mr. Ali Haider, the junior consultant for NIDM, Mr. Vivek Sharma, young professional NIDM, and Ms. Lakshmi Ravikumar, who is the conservation architect at Heritage Synergies, and also the NIDM support and IT support team for enabling this discussion today. On that note, thank you to all our speakers. We've had more than around 100 participants, and that's a very good number. And I hope everybody who has joined today will reflect on the thoughts that have been shared and carried forward in whichever department or agency, and ways in which that an integrated sort of thinking and approach can be developed towards cultural heritage disaster risk reduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can leave now.
Yes.
Thank you, all the participants from my side and also our partner, which we work, organize it together from the HSI. So we jointly convey our heartfelt thanks to all the delegates who had joined. And we wish to work together in future as well. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.